people, in fact, mostly, is terrible. What happened in the Cultural Revolution in China? And then you go back further in time, right? And what happened during the white slavery, you want to call it, the Irish going over to the Americas. That's terrible. And you go even further back in time to Attila the Hun or Genghis Khan, who killed millions in their rampage throughout Europe. That's a terrible thing too. King Leopold II of Belgium, the late 19th century, oversaw, not personally, I get this, not personally. He didn't kill them personally, but he was in charge of the country when millions of Congolese were slaughtered and tortured in then Belgian administered Congo. Go back further in time if you want. The Crusades. Millions were slaughtered. And Wild Bob, look, you're right. Millions of whites were stolen by Muslim raiders and sold into slavery in North Africa. That's true as well. Mm-hmm. It's a fact. Stolen generation in Australia, right? And you go back further in time. In fact, the very first crusade was not in the Holy Land. What, Mickey? That's crazy. How's that possible? The very first crusade, which was perpetrated by the church, not the Catholic Church yet, because Martin Luther hadn't yet complained, so not yet. They went to the Languedoc region of France. It was called the Albigensian Crusade. Entire cities were slaughtered. Now, that's terrible, too. So should we then, and I'm about to write a letter to the Guardian on this, should we burn down the Vatican? Because they engaged in mass murder. Millions of people, of their own people, right? And then all over the world, in South America and Africa, they were part of it. There was a concentration camp that was run by the Catholic Church. You don't know that, but it's true. Not a death camp, but it was a labor camp run by the Catholic Church. So what do you do about that? So should we then burn down the Vatican, right? Should we burn down every other person's statue? Should we tear it all down? Because there's not a single person in history that is free of that. The Colosseum, Dave. The Colosseum, which is a marvel of engineering. Millions of people go to see it every day. Well, not every day, but every year. Once tourism opens up, I'm sure they're going to do it again. But the Colosseum was built by slaves for the Romans to watch slaves tear each other apart. Mm-hmm. That's right. So we should level the Colosseum. We should burn it down. We should every statue of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar went and committed atrocities in his wars in what is now France, the Bello Gallico. The decimation. The term decimation. Which means killing every 10th person. That came from Julius Caesar because that's what he did. He killed every 10th person of the enemy armies. Wow. Every 10th person. Decimation. So again, how far back in time do you go for this? Where do we stop? And here's the kicker. We need to remember what we did. We need to remember all the things that went wrong to appreciate all the things we've done today. Are we living in a perfect world? No. Could things be improved? Yes. Is there institutionalized racism in the world? Yes. Yes. In every single country. Ask how the Rohingya Muslims feel about their treatment by the Burmese. By the Myanmaris, I should say. Ask how the inhabitants of Hong Kong feel about China. Ask how the inhabitants of Nanjing feel about the Japanese. Ask the North Koreans how they feel about South Korea. Ask the South Koreans how they feel about Japan. Ask the Japanese.
Ask the Chinese how they feel about Japan.
That's it. So racism is a fundamental building block of our psyche, as flawed as it is, it seems, right? And could we be better? Yes, we could. So again, my question is, how far back in time do we go before we stop tearing down statues and blowing up shit, right? How many flags do we burn? Do we need to improve where we are? Yes, but in order for that improvement to truly be understood and actually be achieved, we need to learn from our history.
That'll learn
so tearing it down is no good. It's just, when large parts of the former Soviet Union became independent, like Ukraine, etc., they tore down the statues of Stalin, Lenin. They junked Saddam Hussein, Iraq. They junked all that stuff.
That's right.
They shouldn't have. They should have left those statues, either put them in a designated museum, but as a reminder, this is where we were, and look at where we are today.
Well, you create ostrich theory. Ostrich mentality, where I'm just going to stick my head in the sand and forget that it even existed.
Which, of course, means that people just go there again.
I know. You don't learn.
It's a funny thing. we are, because right now we are living through a time of unprecedented crisis. Nobody alive today has seen this kind of crisis. The 2 world wars included, very much so. I mean, while they were horrible, they were localized. Yes, there were world wars, but they were very specific theaters of operation.
They weren't a theater in everyone's country.
Correct. In fact, there was no action fought on the American continent, and there was no action fought on the Australian continent. The World War II and World War I more so pretty much focused on Europe, Asia, the Pacific, and the islands around there, as well as large parts of Northern Africa. That's it for World War II. World War I was even more limited in exchange. Okay, so but right now, this whatever it is, and I'm not going to argue here. I think personally, my belief, it is a disease. Okay, and it's an insidious disease, Dave. The more I hear about it, the more worried I am. But I think it's a disease, and I think recently, I think last week or the week before, the mainstream media finally admitted to the fact that we don't know the real numbers. So we only know the numbers for the people that have been tested, and a lot of people have been tested. In America, it's probably I'm going to take America as the poster child, Dave.
Okay.
Then I'll ask you how your day has been. So in America, we have 300 million or 330 million people live in America. 330, right? Let's call it that. And they administered 41 million, almost 42 million tests. All right, so about 12%, let's call it, right? 12% of the population was tested, right? Now,
at various time slices.
Correct. I see, that's another good point, right? Because once you're tested, doesn't mean it's all over for you. Oh yeah, I'm good now, because you could still get sick, right? That's the thing. Once tested, it's a point in time. But 3.5 million out of the 42 odd million tested positive. That's about 8%. Let's call it 8-ish%, right? So if even to make the math easier, maybe about 10-ish%. Yeah. That means in America there are about 30 million. Let's call it 8%. There are about 30 million people actually infected, according to simple statistics. I'm using very simple statistical methods here. And out of that, 137,000 died, which of course, so it's affected by 10. So in real terms, it means that there are probably 30 million Americans infected, and probably 1.3 million Americans by now have died of it. Globally, that means there are about 130 million infected globally, and probably 5 to 6 million people that have died. We are firmly in Spanish flu territory now. And it is not getting better. It is, in fact, accelerating, to use your favorite phrase. It's exponential. Every day, we see 200,000 extra cases. So, which means in a week, we see between 1 and 1.5 million extra people sick. Yeah. And that base is expanding, and masks are now a thing because there seem to be enough masks, and you should do this and you should do that. You should all sit at home, it seems. But look, will everybody die? No. The mortality rate from this thing is at around 7 to 8%. I'm looking at outpatient data only, of course, right? So 7.5 million have recovered, and almost 600,000 have perished. That's a total outpatient pool of 8.038 million people. So 8 million people have had an outcome. Now, the problem here, though, Dave, is this. There seem to be long-term effects, which at first we didn't realize. So the one is brain damage, other organ damage. It leads to massive clotting. We've mentioned it on the show before, right? And today I reflected on the show, Dave, for the last 10 years. And certainly we've been talking about the hypothesis, and I couldn't come to terms as to why these extinction level events happened to civilizations. Atlantis was destroyed, and we know these civilizations existed. There's going to be more on not to see it, and I know that it's not a very convincing argument, but truly the evidence is everywhere, and you just have to listen to some of our shows or others, in fact, to understand what the evidence actually entails and what it consists of, and it's completely irrefutable. But they disappeared. So I asked myself, why and how and what? And then we came up, with a whole bunch of other ideas, and had some epiphanies along the way. Put the Fibonacci sequence in as a mathematical tool because it's everywhere in nature, so maybe it could be applied to human population as well. And that's where ancient tech comes in as well, that we can talk about later in the show. But here we are, right? And we came to a number of 7.76 billion. 7.76 billion, thereabouts. That's the next level of Fibonacci number that we would have to hit, I believe, for a awareness cascade, a rupture, an awakening, whatever you going to call it, I don't care what you call it, to occur. That was my opinion. I think it's a mathematical thing, and a certain number of people have to live on the planet. Now, and then we said, okay, when are we going to hit this number, Dave? 2020. We're going to hit it in 2020 because that's what the Fibonacci sequence told us. That's what we get there.
Trending towards then.
We're trending towards that, and we're told by the UN and other world bodies that in 2020 we would hit 7.76 billion. Now, it's one thing to say something and even believe it to a point, right? It's like Lotto. Every week you say, I wish I should have won Lotto. I wish I could win Lotto. I expect to win Lotto. You can even say that. When it happens to you, you go, wow, I won Lotto. Boom, mind blown, right? Same with this. So while I've been talking about this for the better part of 10 years on this show, and even before the show, but at least on the show we now have verifiable evidence that we have been talking about this. When it happens, it's a very different animal. We said years ago that something is going to come our way. And I said, and I know Dave said it as well, it won't be nuclear. It's not going to be chemical, because best bang for your buck is biological. It'll be some kind of disease. And that explains the body bags that the States was hoarding as well over all this time. And here we are in 2020, and the biological event is here. And I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about being right at all. I feel shit. Pardon the profanity, but that's how I feel really terrible about it. Do you know what I mean, Dave?
Yeah, I know. Look, this is, I think the main point here is, and I know there's people that listen to the station, Mecky, and there's some in the chat rooms right today that don't believe it's real. They think the whole thing's a joke, that they're not in a position to have seen it firsthand, and they don't have people who have passed away as a result of it. And maybe if they were to contract it themselves, just be unlucky enough for it to evade all their PPE and become infected, then they might have a different story. It's the same as me saying, that the not that I believe this to be true though, but Las Vegas shooting wasn't real. I wasn't there. It's easy for me to shout.
My boss was there, and one of my friends was there. Yeah. So the shooting was real enough. Anyway.
That's my point, right? So, look, I find it quite a struggle to have that conversation with people. So I don't mind, and I don't mind what you believe in. You can believe in anything you want, but I'm going to say, be careful what you choose to believe, because there was two T's in there, one too many. Because knowing that, let's just take this, I'm going to take this all the way and run with it, Mackie. There are 50 Cent Army, not the Chinese one, but the Allies version of it, who wish to split the conspiracy people into as many little parts as possible so we're not unified across everything. And if they can get a majority of people who are conspiracy people, related people, who investigated, true investigators, not someone who just follows the conspiracy, but someone who actually investigates, to buy in to it not being real, and then it turns out to be real, then you lose face, right? You bought into something that isn't real. Like the heavy mass object, Mecky, that I'm sure is still lurking out there in the solar system that just never arrived. It's to me, it's the same thing. So you buy into it, and they can discredit you real easy should you come up with the answer to something else. So right now we're seeing an actual virus getting around. By the way, I'll talk about what I mean in the future. We've got literally the culmination of the whole last 2,000 years' worst events right now. That's what's happening. We've got, earthquakes, we've got floods, we've got a virus, we have had fires, murder hornets. Yeah. This year so far, there hasn't been a month without something going on. And I don't want to hear. I wish, Mecky, that the news would just quit talking about the SARS-CoV-2. Sorry, everyone says COVID-19. COVID-19 is the disease. It's not the virus. That's my little problem. I'll get over it. But what we're really seeing, Mecky, what are we seeing? So overall, the coronavirus now is incredibly virulent. And they've only just this week admitted to it being airborne, that you can breathe it out and someone can breathe in your exhaled air and contract the virus. That was the WHO's final admission, although we knew that back in February. We told you back in February that that was the case. Because it took that long for medical professionals to eventually lockstep agree that that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, we've got, how many? Like 10 million, more than 11 million people that could have used that information earlier if it came from the correct source. Apparently that's supposed to be the WHO, the World Health Organization. I don't know, they don't seem to do much across the planet or to do with health, but I don't know. I may be a really large critic of their speediness, Mecky. They're truly not at all speedy. The people in there, and there's someone, I won't name you in there, but it's only real for people who watch TV or people under mind control, if you prefer. I don't agree. I believe that the virus is real. I've got people that work in the hospital, they're actual medical professionals, and they're treating people right now with the virus. So if you don't want to deal with it, if you don't believe it's true and you're just doing that to make yourself feel more comfortable, and I'm not really trying to berate you about it, I'm not going to argue. I don't care. I don't care if you don't believe it. I don't really... honest? Mecky, do you care if they don't believe it?
Honestly, no. I mean, and it's like gravity. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. It'll make you fall in the dark, right?
That's right.
So, and just to be clear, though, the person in the chat room was right, and about one thing, the knock-on effects, the domino effects that are brought about by this particular event will be much, much more severe than the event itself. I think a lot more people are going to be affected and die from it. In conjunction with all the other things you mentioned, the locusts, and the other fires.
The locust, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But while Bob is right that TV does operate as a mind control tool, and it is there for the government to use, and they use it like social media to be able to control the population. There's no dispute. I'm not going to argue. But, Mecky, you're right. So brain damage, blood clots, remdesivir was allowed in Australia for treatment for those in critical condition. Most people who contract the virus, if there's only 7.45% mortality rate, case fatality rate, then you've got 92% at the moment chance of having it and without even severe symptoms.
Or any symptoms.
Yeah, or any. That's right. And therefore, I think Donald Trump's quote was tongue-in-cheek, but he says, you don't want to discover it, don't test. You don't want to know how many people have it, don't test. It'll lower the numbers. And that's actually true. It will lower the numbers. Now he's wearing a mask, if you don't know. And it is truly a real thing, and it's really a virus, and it's really virulent, and it attacks through your ACE2 receptor, and through your bloodstream or your pulmonary system. You have a ton of places where there are ACE2 receptors. It's only 4 markers off what was 2013 registered as a virus, which looks like it's been altered. It does look like that. But, Mecky, to be honest, it's not 99.9%. It's not 99.7%. If it's got a 7.4% case fatality rate, then that's 92 point... How much? 92.6%. Anyway, that you'll survive. But anyway, the most important...
But survive with damage.
Yeah, so if you've had the virus and it presented to you as the virus, not those who had it, who it saw no effects, and it disappeared and you were able to fight it, then you're going to be very lucky. But for those who had it and it's not just the elderly with multiple life-threatening conditions. There's a certain subset of people who it does affect, and those who haven't had any of the previous flus for the last 10 years or greater, not just other health conditions. So once again, that Wild Bob, I'm not trying to put you down. There are a lot of people who suffer from inherited opinion, where you've not done any I'm not saying, once again, the chat room is I'm not speaking to the chat room here, but there's a lot of people who don't do their independent research, and they don't learn more about it. They're only hearing the opinions of others, and without looking at the meta studies and any of the studies that's going on currently right now. And so they don't know the full picture. So Meki and I have been at least 6 to 8 weeks ahead of the media, because they're staying well steps behind. The WHO is from last year. They're so not 2019, Meki, in their approach to this. And knowing what we know and what is going to be put out in the media, eventually agreed to as being the conditions. See, the autopsies, Meki, came out with blood like gel.
Yep. And blood clots in every major organ.
Yeah, in all the major organs. It causes problems with your brain. Like the blood-brain barrier prevents most of the brain from getting it, but it has a secondary effect. All of the complaints, Becky, about the people wearing masks and there have been a lack, a 96% oxygen or something. Well, doctors have been wearing them for years, so I'd just be quiet.
So to be clear, I purchased masks probably back in January.
N95s too, right?
N99s, actually.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I know they're quite expensive. I got them from a British military manufacturer, and I know this is it's just what I do. I get prepared well ahead of time, so I wasn't part of the toilet panic either. But the point here is that I did buy them, and I've been wearing them whenever I went outside. And I do that because they're members of my family, which, if exposed to this, would be suffering, more strongly than others because of their conditions. So it's not for me; it's to protect my family. But I've been wearing them whenever I went shopping. Now my mask is an expensive one, meaning it's a cloth mask. And it's washable. Yep. It's got silver lining in it as well. Correct. Mm-hmm. It's got a valve. Yep. And it is washable. So I can use it for 200 hours. And I ordered the second lot just recently. So I use it. I also use echinacea quite a lot together with some other herbs from a company called Kiwi Herb. It's like a mouth spray. And these are things I would do for the flu anyway. It's real enough because members of my team are in Melbourne and they're on lockdown again. They're again changed to their homes, and some of my team members have private businesses or they're partners of private business. They're all suffering from this. So Wild Bob is 100% correct. And the economic effect of this lockdown is going to be catastrophic in Australia as well as anywhere else. Certainly, Australia is not as bad off as other places. In fact, a lot better off than most places.
Yep.
But the economic effect on the Europe, as well as the United States and maybe the Americas overall, is going to be catastrophic.
Absolutely.
One country that worries me a lot is India. India worries me because I've been there and I know what the facilities are like and I know how people live, especially in the slums. Not good, Dave.
No, I know. And South Africa's also rising up on the charts. It's in the top 10 now as well.
That was surprising.
Yeah, I know. So look, I don't think we can speak any more to it.
No,
the coronavirus, that's enough. I didn't answer your question, how was my day? Because
how was your day?
Look, I went out to meet some friends, and I'm in a car club, and it's a lot of fun. But I took the kids and the dogs, and one of the dogs puked up on the way home in the back seat, and it was so disgusting. And everyone had we had a storm just come through, Meki. We would know that, and we couldn't have our heads out the window, so we're suffering, teary, yuck smell all the way home. It's like 40-minute drive, and when we're hearing the dog vomits, and my daughter in the back, she's going, ew, ew.
Yeah, see, vomit is bad. Wet dog is bad. Yeah. Wet dog vomiting. It's just
not good. Not good. No. So yeah. Anyway, so that was that was an adventure and a half. Mickey, but I found something. I found a story this week, and I thought it was important to mention. Have you heard of Park Won-soon?
Korean?
Yeah? He's the mayor of Seoul.
Yes.
Did you hear what happened to him?
I do not know what happened to him. What happened to him?
Okay, well, thanks for asking. It's reported that a female employee had filed a sexual harassment claim against this 64-year-old on Wednesday, the day before he went missing. Thought there had been no official confirmation of the complaint, though. And then, since he didn't show up for work on Thursday and they cancelled a meeting with the presidential official of his Seoul City Hall office, his daughter said he hadn't been home either. And they tracked down his location via his cell phone triangulation, and they found his body.
Oh, jeez. So what happened?
Well, they don't know. So far, it's just no other details. It's just his body was found in the woods. And, yeah.
Oh, it's interesting.
He was the first elected mayor of Seoul back in 2011.
Interesting.
Yeah, crazy. So, don't know. Still, that's open for a lot more discussion. Goodness, what a story.
I know. Look, I think what we will see going forward as a preamble to more insidious and sinister activities, people will disappear. I think we will hear a lot more about people just or dying all of a sudden.
Yeah.
My favorite story in that respect, that's not true. It's not my favorite story. It's the story I find most engaging at the moment.
Do share.
Apart from everything else. Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested.
Right now. It's the next one, yeah.
Good man. Ghislaine Maxwell is arrested, has been arrested. She for some reason, she was in the States. Everybody thought she was in Europe, but she wasn't, so whatever. I listened to this interview with her friend, or a friend of hers, and the friend kept saying, even though she was not asked, but she was just saying 4 or 5 times in a row, Ghislaine would never talk about Prince Andrew. Oh, she would never say anything about Prince Andrew. Oh, Prince Andrew was her friend. He was there for her when her father died. And so, she would never say anything about Prince Andrew. Looks pretty bad for the royal family as far as I'm concerned. So you've got this person here pretty much pleading for your life. Okay, now she won't say anything about you, man. Come on. Which, of course, puts me to thinking as to what happened to Epstein. Epstein clearly is dead, we think. Well, clearly. He's not in prison anymore. He's not in prison anymore. That's what we know. Right. And if this friend so strongly and forcefully argues for Ghislaine not to say anything,
won't be saying anything about Prince Andrew, which actually
not Prince Andrew. Him. Yeah, the others, forget about it. But she's saying, like, Prince, come on. Yeah, don't have her disappear in prison. Don't have her killed in prison.
That's right.
Now, I'm not taking any more bets, but I don't think she's long for this world. This cannot come to trial. I don't care what else is happening right now out there in the world. And let's be very clear. Alan Dershowitz. Do we know who Alan Dershowitz is?
No, I don't.
Alan Dershowitz is a high-powered lawyer.
Right.
He defended the guy who killed his wife, the sportsman. O.J. Simpson. Yeah. So he defended him. He also defended
defense.
That's Chewbacca defense. That's right. He also defended Epstein. He was Epstein's retained lawyer. And guess on whose team he's also?
Oh, I don't know. Ghislaine?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
He's He's Donald Trump's lawyer.
Yeah, I hear.
And he was also implicated by one of the girls, that's Dershowitz, as having partaken in the activities. And he sued her. She countersued. It's a hilarious mess. But my point here is, there's no way that this can come to trial because there are too many people in high-power places. Too many people have too much to lose for this ever to come to trial.
Don't they have something to lose?
Yeah, see, the thing is, a civil trial is okay because there's still a civil trial going on, trying to get compensation out of Epstein's estate for his
but there's
victims.
still money passing through it. That's
Yeah, but it's not a criminal trial. In a criminal trial, you call witnesses.
That's right.
And you get subpoenaed, and the whole thing gets dragged out into the open. All the dirty laundry, everything. And that is, in my opinion, what was being avoided very, very hard by having Epstein supposedly die. Because once he's dead, there's no criminal trial anymore. Now with Ghislaine, a co-conspirator, being in there, that trial can reignite. Yeah, and if Prince Andrew, that is in any way implicated, there could be a criminal trial against him as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So the dominoes are falling, and I saw this somewhere, which is very interesting. But I honestly believe, Dave, that she's not long for this world.
Yeah, well,
something is going to happen.
Yep. Well, what they've done, Mekki, is they've removed Ghislaine's clothing. She's now wearing paper clothes, and I'll just highlight that for the people on YouTube, and
she'll find it.
And also taking her bed sheets away, so that she can't commit suicide. But that doesn't stop the phone order that Hillary's put into the suicide hotline. That's a meme, by the way. There's a call center person, and there's Hillary, and she goes, it goes, suicide hotline. She goes, I'd like to place an order. That to me is really funny. But you're right. So that lady that was saying, I'm not going to, I swear she won't talk about, I promise she won't talk about Prince Andrew.
Remember that?
Implicates him straight away, because she didn't say, oh, Prince Andrew, honestly, I know all about it. He had nothing to do with it. She didn't say those lines.
She didn't say that.
She's not going to rag on him. Sing like a bird, I reckon, is going to happen. And the Clintons were mentioned in the same breath, so that she was going to talk about the others, but not Prince Andrew. Crazy.
It's the Gateses, it's the Clintons.
Yeah.
Look,
I know Trump partied there pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the girls did say that not everybody that came to the island also partook in this thing.
Yeah, that's right.
But they also said that everybody knew. Like you had to be an idiot.
Yeah. Remember that knowing is still not accomplice, but it is protecting the guilty.
Well, it is.
So it's withholding information which would lead to the arrest of someone.
Oh, there's Mr. Ross said something interesting in the chat room just now. There's a rumor that she was moved. Sorry, they moved
to Gitmo.
They moved the prisoner to Gitmo, and it may have been her, Mr. Roll. Thank you for that information. Very interesting.
Let's hope.
It's possible, I guess.
Hope,
right?
But if they don't have security cameras where she's gone,
Gitmo. So.
Yeah, good luck. It just depends. I would have to say it depends on who the prosecutors are, because if they truly want this to disappear, she just had to die in a car accident in a transfer. And that's the end of that.
But if she dies, Dave. But if she does die, right? Let's just peel this. Let's peel this onion for a second here. If she does die, then without a doubt, we know
for sure
that this goes so much deeper.
Yeah.
And so many more people will be implicated. It becomes then, well, I would say untenable almost for the power elite to continue to exist.
Could you imagine an uprising against them? It would be a witch hunt, right?
Yeah, well, we've seen it. I mean, is it time for a revolution? That's a very good question. Yeah. The thing is, we have seen protests coming out there. People try to incite race wars, didn't quite get there. Certainly, it didn't help with the virus being around either. And it's really interesting. Now, let's assume for a second that Wild Bob is right. There is no virus. And let's assume for a second. Let's say there is a virus, but they find a cure and they cured it now. But they keep the virus threat, and this is really the important bit here. Let's say they keep the virus threat alive
long enough
to control forever, to control populations.
Yeah, that's right.
Why? There's no good reason really to ever not have this go away, because the spin on the news, I don't know if you've been watching the news, but the spin in the news is this. Yeah. Oh, this is here to stay. Oh, if there ever will be a vaccine.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, this is now a different world. Oh, I guess this is something we now have to get used to. So the spin is no longer, we're going to have a cure soon, then life is going to go back to normal.
No, not at all. V-shaped recovery.
No, the spin is now, this is here to stay. It's like the long war on terrorism.
Yeah, that's right. How many? That here to stay 20 years.
Yeah, I know.
Until the virus, it was still the war on terror.
You can't defeat a concept, Dave. It's not possible.
That's right.
It's not possible. and this virus thing as well. I mean, the thing is this, we will see vaccination passports. I think we will see mandatory vaccinations across the world. I think we will see a huge profit spike for the pharmaceutical companies. Okay,
and a few individuals,
and the fear. And remember what the Strong said last week. Right. Yep. This is also part of the and what this is where Bob is wrong as well. This is part of the fear campaign. And in my opinion, see, I used to always think that maybe, do we really have to kill everybody to avoid the awareness cascade?
Just have to.
And then the more I thought about
enough, man.
Yeah, maybe if we can lower the frequency of the planet enough for the awareness cascade not to take effect,
to fail. That's right.
Yeah, even if we hit the Fibonacci number that we think might trigger it, that's enough. And don't forget, they mentioned the special thing that's going to happen December 20th, 21st, at the winter solstice time, right? Up here in Australia, and then the energy lines will expand from there. So I'm thinking, obviously, nothing ever happens by chance. 9/11 ushered in a new era. This virus, which again we saw it coming, guys. Even if it's a hoax virus, it's still a real thing as far as the effect is concerned. Because the thing is this: these mass graves are being dug all over the world.
That's right.
And somebody's buried there, right? So people are dying. I know people that have lost people, and I have friends and family in the medical establishment here in Australia, fairly senior people as well. And they're all now they were really scared in February, March. They were terrified, in fact, right? But they're now, in Australia at least, we're much better prepared, and the hospitals are in much better position. And look, Victoria, even we call it, it's triple-digit numbers now, but in the scheme of things, it's nothing. It's nothing. But the point is the fear, Dave. The fear is being used as a tool. It always has been, of course. But this fear, it's an intangible. Because you can't, terrorists at least you can see. You can't see a virus, Dave.
No, that's right.
You can't see a disease.
Yeah.
How do you can't, what do I do? Oh, you got to wear a mask. Oh, you got to wear clothing. Oh, you got to take this vaccine. Oh, you got to do this. You got to do that, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you haven't got a vaccine. You can't come to my country. Right now, people from certain countries are not allowed to go to other countries. Full stop. That's the thing.
That wasn't a thing last year.
No, it wasn't. Tomorrow it'll be, have you been vaccinated? Which diseases have you been vaccinated against? What's your blood type?
That's right.
What's your blood type?
There'll be a global health record, Mackie.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's your family history on these things? Oh, completely. It has to be. And this is where the UN will come into its own again. They will, this should be a global effort, da, da, da. Sure. Look, the funny thing is this, right? On the face of it, all of these things sound like really great solutions to problems, right? And this is what David Icke said as well. I know David Icke is fallen out of favor with people. I think he's a clever guy, and I think he's onto a lot of stuff. Do I believe everything he says? Well, with a grain of salt, but he believes it. That's enough. So it's this manipulation of the masses. You give them a problem. Here's a problem. Boom. Help me with a problem. Nobody forces you to do this. Nobody's forcing you to take a vaccine, right? You're asking for it.
You'll beg. In fact, you'll beg for it.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. No one tells you to go to war with terrorists. You asked for that. After 9/11, make the world safe again. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, but there's one more story that we need to cover here as well.
Just a real quick one. So we know that tensions are rising with China. Poor China, poor Australia, poor the rest of the world. All of our, our people are trying really hard to look at this in the right way, and I'm not sure how that's going. So Australia has now upgraded its travel warnings for China, suggesting that you'll be detained arbitrarily by the Department of Foreign Affairs, but in their country, and as the relationship has deteriorated between Australia and China. Mackie, one thing I had to say about China, because it's only a segue, this is that sort of what you're talking about here, and how it's not that it's not going well, but there's travel restrictions. Not only is there travel restrictions, but you can get locked up, and it's all to do with Hong Kong, says our government. Now, China's having a really hard time right now. Remember that investigation? Not the Five Eyes, but the 120 countries all agreed. Hey, you know what? We really should have a look at the origin of the virus in Wuhan, because, hey, look, we can help out. We've got a whole planet full of experts. Why don't we all get together? And China didn't like it very much. However, Meki, but there's something that's happening right now in China which is not going to help the investigation at all, and that is 1,000-year rain. There are 100-something dams that have reached past critical and are dumping as much water as possible. Three Gorges Dam, there's some conjecture over what that's like currently looking like. From satellite, it looks like it's deforming, and they're dumping it from all of the outlets simultaneously, attempting to try and reduce the flow. But there's even more coming from upstream. They've had more than 20 days rain, and there's still another maybe 20 to go, and the first 5 floors of the buildings in Wuhan are being evacuated now, and it's already consumed the first floor in the floods.
Yeah.
The Yangtze River is a massive river, and it's so long, and it has so many 400 million people live by its sides. And their crop growing, Meki, has been already affected by it. So it doesn't look good so far. There's also been earthquakes over there, and for China right now, I don't think there's going to be anything to find. I don't think there's going to be any evidence anywhere to find about the virus. It's all been washed clean, and that's going to be the end of that story. I don't think we're going to get I don't think China's going to get its comeuppance the way that all of the allies had, decided it was going to happen. And maybe that's good for China. I don't think they're working their levers, making it rain to clean it all up. I just think it's, nature's doing its thing. Should the Three Gorges Dam fail, though, that's going to be an absolute, it's going to be terrible.
No,
they'll be down to a billion people.
There's 400 million people easily in the path of this, and I mean, if it fails, oh my God, they moved scores of towns, millions of people have actually moved.
One of my friends actually had to move out.
Right.
They'd been in a house for 2,000 years or something.
Yeah, some crazy thing like that, right? And completely altering all the natural flows of these river systems. It's much bigger than the Hoover Dam or anything like we've attempted elsewhere. But if failure is imminent, and it's unthinkable, it would wash away large tracts of China. Yeah, people, cities, everything. It's a really interesting time, Dave. Because you torn in one way, and then you torn another way. You dragged here, in your mind. I'm talking about, right? The different ideas. Could there be a war? Mm-hmm. Could there be something else? What's happening here? Where are we going? Is it world government? Is China going to dominate? Is America going to falter? But it's not clear
cut at all. Who's going to come out on top?
Who is going to come out on top?
Who is going to survive the disasters to come up on top? Not even a war. Because, honestly, 5 weeks ago, I thought we were definitely driving towards a war scenario, and now I don't think China could deal with it right now, even if it wanted to.
Yeah.
Let alone the West.
That's right.
Our economy is so bad we won't be able to afford any weapons.
Well, it'll be boards with nails.
Boards with nails.
But but the thing is this. I mean, it's everywhere. And I mean, you can see it in the tensions that Russia has with its neighbors, India and China. You see the tensions that are happening in South America. Africa is massively. And the thing is, the locusts, which we talked about, across the world in South America and in Africa, this is
now in China now,
food security. Yeah, exactly. Right, for threatening the food security of hundreds of millions of people. There's the music. Don't go away. Donate if you can. This is Listener Funded Radio.
We'll see you on the other side of the short break. You're back with Dave and Meki's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com on the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for only $5 a month. That's all it takes. The coffee. It's a single coffee. Just do it. It's easier. And the archives get you to, access to be able to listen to not just our shows, and not just Solaris' show, she's before us, but all of the host shows. And you can listen to them in your own time and download them as MP3. It's really, really cool. If you're new to Shiny Side Out, you're welcome aboard. It's a tinfoil hat zone, so keep your arms within the vehicle. Turn off your personal reality inverters, and please, no flash photography. We're glad you're on board, though, and thank you for inviting us into your lives. So follow, subscribe, or otherwise for the appropriate social media platform that you find Shiny Side Out on. Do that. We're halfway through, and this is show number 434.
430 and 400.
So get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website. Maybe an EMP-proof thumb drive, or it includes survival documents, or a seed pack, or something else. Now, Mackie, when I remember 10 years ago, we were talking about these things, survival documents and seed packs, and I knew that something one day we'd need to do this. We'd need to prep. We'd need to know. We need to understand what it means. What does a pandemic mean? What does a meteor strike mean? What does, a tsunami? All of the different kinds of things. What does it mean if your country becomes invaded? What does it mean if there's an economic collapse? What does it mean? All those things. Except for the war part and the media, we've got almost everything jam-packed into this exciting, non-stop 2020.
Oh, I would argue that we have that as well, to be honest with you. I don't think we have anything that is not covered anymore.
Yeah.
We are truly in an unprecedented time, and I don't say this to create some hyperbole here. No, I don't, and it's not a statement that is wrong in any way, because we have never seen anything like where we are today. We have seen bits of it here and there, but never all of it at the same time, which is why I believe that disclosure is just around the corner, because what else could possibly matter at this point? In fact, we have disclosure, Dave.
I know.
And I don't know if you guys have seen it. Tic Tac, but more so, Tic Tac is one, so that's disclosure of, it's disclosure of the fact that, yes, there are UFOs, not yes, there are space aliens, yes, there are unidentified flying objects. We don't know what it is, we don't know where it came from, we don't know where
the planet, or in the planet.
Something is somewhere, yeah. Now, what I'm talking about is the secret of the Skinwalker Ranch, right? And then we're gonna go. If you haven't seen this particular show on Netflix, if you do nothing else this year, you burn your TV down, you blow it up. I don't care. You watch this thing, and that is the closest I've seen anywhere to disclosure. And some of the information is completely baffling and also very new. And completely scientifically verifiable, right? So for all those would-be debunkers, this is a team of scientists that has now been living on that ranch for a few months. I'm really hoping that they are bringing out the second season, which will capture things that were done this year, because the first season that we just 8 episodes that we were given covers I guess up to the beginning of this year. So I really, really hope that this whole COVID thing didn't stop the production of that particular show. It may have, but I hope not. So
there's tons of shows, Mackie, on television that won't be coming back.
Well, there's that.
You know that, right?
Yeah. So, they can.
They've declared that they're just going to end it where that season ended, and that's going to be the end of that. And I'm thinking, what's going to fill the space for the list? There's a huge list. Maybe I'll bring it up next week, right?
Yeah, do it. Yeah, do it. It'll be fear news. It'll be fear porn. Fear porn. Yeah. Get it.
No. See, if they can't keep producing new shows, then what will there be? There'll only be reruns, right? Let's bring back MASH on every channel.
Well, that's happening, dude.
I know.
The Golden
Girls.
Oh, rerun time. Yeah, there you go. I will seriously consider doing harm to myself with that.
So look,
look,
this is show number 434, and this is part 12. Believe it or not, part 12, and we're 4/5 the way through the show notes unless they get bigger. And this is ancient tech.
Yeah, we should go start with the Vimanas as a continuity thing, in my opinion. Unless, I think that's where we should start, because we can finish that today. What do you think?
I thought we were just about to attack iron smelting.
Are we?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hey, good. Let's go there.
because that's where I had the note for last week's show. But we had the Strongs on, and that was really good. Plus, did you catch their event today?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Oh, some of it, yes. I did.
Yeah. And
fascinating.
Yeah, fascinating stuff, absolutely. But they did cover off most of that stuff on our show last week. So if you did happen,
more concisely though.
Yeah, if you did happen to miss the live one today, then you can catch it up on ours.
That's right, exactly. Now, very quickly though, just as a preamble to let me get right into the text. So we believe that there were ancient civilizations that had a higher potentially level of development than we do today. Completely vanished, of course, but that also means we believe something should have survived. Something should have survived, and the two oldest cultures that we know of, and the Aboriginal culture notwithstanding, are the Chinese and the Indian cultures, which have got records that go back the furthest compared to anyone. And they also have systems, medical systems, scientific systems that are unique in many ways. And I believe certainly that some of that knowledge has come down the line from on high, or from the olden times. And Dave, why don't you take us to this is now we're talking about China and what the Chinese accomplished and what knowledge they had.
Absolutely. So iron smelting from 1050 BC through to 256 BC. So still BC. Archaeological evidence revealed that iron smelting technology was developed in China as early as the 5th century BC in the Zhou dynasty, and I've mentioned the time frame already, during the spring and autumn and warring states period, and that was 776 to 221 BC. China went into a flourishing period for iron smelting. In the Han Dynasty, 202 to 220 AD, so it's about 400 years there, central government monopolized the iron smelting, seeing remarkable development.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the interesting thing here is, of course, again, I believe that this technology was handed down from older sources, and a lot of the things we're sharing here with you, that's the first time it was written down about. So the first time there's some written evidence around this. Doesn't mean that it didn't exist before then, okay? And there's just as an interesting aside, I watched the news cast the other day, and they found a 12,000-year-old mine in South America underwater. It's now underwater, but it looked like that people had been mining ochre there. Ochre is one of the pigments found in ancient drawings. So a 12,000-year-old mine. Who, at that point in the Americas, was mining ochre? Okay, just my point is here. This was cave divers. They're looking around and they found all these tools and mining equipment as well.
That was obviously during the Ice Age.
Clearly,
yeah. No, but I mean, because the water was lower and it wasn't going to be filled with water.
Yeah, completely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And this is also something to remember here, right? The timeline in my mind, Dave, for all of this is crystallizing, and it's not necessarily all in line with accepted science and what is out there being taught in the schools. But in my mind, the timeline, I'm going to write it down as well. I'm going to share with you. It's becoming crystal clear as to what happened and when, and it's clear that some event caused a massive cataclysm which brought about the end of an ice age and destroyed the prevalent advanced civilization at that point on the planet. And it may very well have been, that's going to sound crazy, one of the cataclysms could have been brought about by the arrival of the moon, but we'll get to that at some other point in the hypothesis.
Yeah.
Which brings us to porcelain. Porcelain, it actually came out of China. That's why it's called China. And it's of younger invention, 581 to 618 AD is where they put it here. Porcelain is a great invention of ancient China. The earliest porcelain emerged in the Shang dynasty, 1600 to 1046 before the Common Era, so almost 4,000 years ago, really, and matured during the Tang dynasty at 618 to 906. During the Song dynasty, which was 960 to 1279, porcelain production technology reached an unprecedented height due to its focus on shape and the tactile experiences of the glaze. And if you ever touched really fine china, then you know what we're talking about here. Chinese porcelain was highly prized in the world, and many artworks had been introduced to the West through the Silk Road. But again, this goes back almost 4,000 years. In my opinion, that means it could have gone back even further.
Yeah, and the next device I've actually seen firsthand in, and I don't know, I think it might have been Hong Kong or Singapore, in one of the temples, an earthquake detector. Now this is claimed here to be 132 AD, and it looks like a large vessel with dragons suspended from where the opening would be if it had a lid, and they all hang down, and in the mouth of each one of them is a ball, and it's held in by the fangs, and beneath each one of those dragons is a cup, and the cup will catch the ball from the mouth, and they know the severity of the earthquake as how many were dislodged. And it's extraordinary. So according to the court records of the later Han dynasty, the seismograph was created by the brilliant inventor Zhang Heng, 78 to 140 AD. In 132 AD, 8 years prior to, I suppose, he died, maybe, its function is to determine the direction of an earthquake. In 138 AD, the instrument indicated an earthquake occurring in Yangtze, 1,000 kilometers away. It was the first time that mankind to detect an earthquake. Modern seismographs only began development in 1848 in Europe, and they don't detect the direction in which they come, they just detect an amount.
Yep. Interesting, isn't it?
Crazy.
Which brings us to rockets, which seem to be at least 1,800 years old here. And China's the hometown.
Mythbusters.
I know, right? China is the hometown of rockets. Ancient Chinese inventors created rockets by applying counterforce produced by ignited gunpowder, which is pretty much how rockets still work, counterforce. According to history in 228 AD, the Wei state already used torches attached to arrows to guard Chenkang against the invading troops of the Shu state. Later, the Song dynasty, which was 960 to 1279, had adapted gunpowder to make rockets. A paper tube stuffed with gunpowder was attached to an arrow which can be launched by a bow. These kind of ancient rockets and improved ones were widely used in military and entertainment activities in China. Obviously, fireworks, etc.
Yeah, entertainment. I'm sure they would have been used in war in some way, or shape, or form. Well, that's maybe the mentality of the West, Meki. I think that I'm carrying my wishes there. Bronze. Okay, 1700 BC. The skill of producing bronze was mastered by ancient Chinese 1700 BC. The Shang dynasty, sorry, I saw a W, sorry, U, where there wasn't one. Then it was there from 1600 to 1046 BC, and the Zhou dynasties 1046 to 256 BC brought China into the Bronze Age, and the making of bronze wares reached its peak in this period. Bronze was mainly used to make weapons, bronze tools, and ritual vessels at the time. Compared to counterparts in other regions of the world, the Chinese bronze wares stand out for their inscriptions and delicate decorative patterns.
Yep. The kite, you'd think that's a very obvious thing, but it really isn't, I guess.
Yeah.
That was developed by the Chinese about 3,000 years ago. The earliest kites were made of wood, called muyuan, wooden kite. In earlier times, kites were mainly used for military purposes, believe it or not, such as sending a message, measuring distances, and testing the wind, as well as signaling. Over time, kite flying developed into playthings, and kite flying is now, of course, enjoyed worldwide. The simple and humble kite.
Yeah, I can see the messaging. Triangulation would get you distance. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, that sort of leads me to believe that I might one day be able to have my own nuke, just because we can play with it. If it was military, it became a toy.
Sure. Yeah.
Who knows? I wouldn't trust me with one. The seed drill. Because remember, every problem is okay if it's a nail, if you've got a hammer, right? The
That's
seed
it.
drill, 3,500 years ago. The seed drill is a device that plants the seed into the soil at a uniform depth, and it covers it. If without this device, farmers had to plant the seeds by hand, each one, resulting in waste and uneven growth, because not all of them would germinate, of course. According to records, the Chinese usage of seed drills can be dated back to the 2nd century BC. The device made farmers' jobs easier and highly improved the agricultural output of China. Plus, not just making it easier, it gave them more leisure time or allowed them to tend to larger areas.
Absolutely. Row crop farming, you think that'd be a thing, or anyway, right? But row crop farming is probably a more industrial way of doing it, because you can easily get to things and everything's evenly spaced. In other parts, this is from the 6th century BC. In other parts of the world, farmers still scattered seed onto the fields randomly, right? So they would just pop up anywhere. While the ancient Chinese started planting crops in rows from the 6th century BC. So 2,500 years ago. They planted individual seeds in a row, thus reducing seed loss and making crops grow faster and stronger. This technology was not used in the Western world until about 2,200 years later. So the seed drill, as well as row crop farming, clearly saw the Chinese as a emerging industrial farming kind of nation.
Yeah, when you just scatter the seeds on the ground, the birds eat more of them than you end up growing.
That's it.
Yeah, so placing them exactly at the right depth, spaced apart properly, is the most efficient way of use of land, plus the most successful output, and your yields are much better. Toothbrush. Could you believe 1498 in China? The bristled toothbrush was invented in 1498 by Chinese, who made toothbrushes with coarse horse hairs attached to a bone or bamboo handles, because they were obviously prevalent and easy to get. It was later brought to the New World by Europeans.
Interesting.
A lot cleaner teeth eventuated as a result of that, I bet.
That's what happened. But yeah, look, dental hygiene wasn't as necessary as you might think, and the reason for that is because people, at least in Europe and certainly other parts of the world where it didn't exist, didn't eat sugar. Sugar is the key reason why we have to brush our teeth.
That's right.
I mean, of course, you don't want to get anything stuck in your teeth. You know, if you've got a food trap or whatever, that's bad. But it's really the sugar that, or our consumption of sugar that makes our teeth susceptible to rot. And so forth. So ancient
oranges, orange juice is bad for you.
Yeah, all the acidity, 100%, absolutely. There's acid wear, there's sugar wear. Interestingly enough, there's ancient skeletons and skulls and jaws show immaculate teeth.
Perfect. Yes.
Yes. So which you can either argue, well, they must have had the best healthy lifestyle ever, or they were so advanced technologically that brushing the teeth it wasn't even necessary. Take a pill and it straightens your crooked teeth and got rid of cavities all in once. Just take a pill or put a salve on it. Interesting if you think about this. Yeah, put a salve on it, it'll be all good. Now, the root of all evil is money. I don't think that's true. I think the root of all evil is greed, but nonetheless, we can thank the Chinese for the invention of paper money. Which pretty much put paid to the notion that money, yeah, that's right, money has any value at all. No, it doesn't. Currency. It's worth whatever I say it is. There's something called modern it's called modern monetary policy, which is right now it's getting a lot of traction, which maintains that the government can print as much money as it wants. It doesn't matter because it's the government's money anyway. So forget inflation, because right now the least of our problems is inflation. Just print more money. It's fair enough. So modern monetary policy. But so anyway, paper money was first developed by the ancient Chinese, who started using folded money at the end of the 8th or the beginning of the 9th century AD, so some 1100 years ago.
Folding money other than coin.
Correct. Coinage is much older, of course. Paper bills were originally used as privately issued bills of credit or exchange notes. it's actually very similar to what the English did with their banking notes. A merchant could deposit his cash on the capital, receiving a paper or rather exchange certificate, which he could then exchange for metal coins or other things in other cities, because it was guaranteed, obviously, by imperial decree.
And of course, it was an agreed value. That's what it was.
100%.
Absolutely.
Now we're getting to a part of the show which is truly in the tinfoil head zone. So remember what Dave told you at the beginning of this. And this is now we're getting into the area of less clear-cut things. Evidence is not as forthcoming as one would like. These are the oddities with relation to China. Dave?
Yeah, so the first one, I will just take them alternatively. So, ancient underwater city and lost civilization at the bottom of, is that Fujian Lake?
Yeah,
that'll
that sounds
do.
good, yeah.
All right. Whoever named it is rolling around in their grave right now. And you know, I do butcher the name, so I'm really, really terrible at pronunciation. But I'll give it a shot anyway. A mystery lies scattered on the unexplored bottom of Fujian Lake, stretching out through Chengjiang County, or Jiangchuan County, and Huaning County in Yunnan Province, about 60 kilometers to Kunming City, China. The lake is rising 1,720 meters above sea level and encompassing about 212 square kilometers. According to an ancient local legend, a city-like silhouette under the lake from the nearby mountains can clearly be seen on a fine, calm day. To find out if there's something hidden in the calm waters of the lake, a Chinese submarine archaeology team stationed in Fujian Lake carried on surveys and, with advanced use of detectors, discovered lots of blocks scattered on the lake bottom, stones that formed a wall seen on a sonar display along with various flagstones. High stairs appeared in front of them, and flagstones covered with moths seemed to reveal an ancient sunken city. The team members found the scope of the site under Fujian Lake was extremely big, and the traces of construction were everywhere along with earthenware. Could the underwater city be an ancient city of Yaiyuan, which disappeared mysteriously many hundreds of years ago?
So I did some digging. I couldn't find any further information on this, which in itself is a little odd. So I will keep digging on that one. Aha! The next one is a lot more controversial, and a lot of people believe they have debunked it. It's here anyway because I don't think anything is ever fully debunked. That's my opinion. But these are the Dropa stone, or also known sometimes as the Jopa stones, or even Dropka. They're said by some ufologists and pseudo-archaeologists, I like to call them alternative archaeologists, to be a series of at least 716 circular stone discs dating back some 12,000 years. Again, that number, Dave, 12 to 15,000 or 12 to 14,000 years.
All the time.
That's the number. I mean, Göbekli Tepe fits right in there as well, right? I mean, it's anyway. So some believe they date back 12,000 years ago, on which tiny hieroglyphic-like markings may be found. Each disc is claimed to measure up to 1 foot, which is about 30 centimeters, in diameter, so it's not small, and carry 2 grooves originating from a hole in their center, in the form of a double spiral. The hieroglyph-like markings are said to be found in these grooves. No record of any of these discs being stored in any museum in the world has ever been found, and they're believed to be a hoax. Now, it actually goes on here, Zum Nui. For 20 years, the Dropa stones were said to have sat in storage before they were given to Zum Nui for study in 1958. It is said that he came to the conclusion that the grooves on the discs were actually very tiny hieroglyphs, none of which were of a pattern that had been seen before, and which can only be seen with the use of a magnifying glass. By 1962, he had allegedly deciphered them into a story that told of a spacecraft that crash-landed in the area of the cave, the Bayan Ha Shan region, and that the ship contained the Dropa people who could not fix it and therefore had to adapt to Earth. Further, his research claims that the Dropa people were hunted down and killed by the local Han tribesmen for a period. Sum Nui noted specifically that one glyph apparently said the Dropa came down from the clouds in their aircraft. Our men, women and children hid in the caves 10 times before sunrise. When at last we understood the sign language of the Dropas, we realized that the newcomers had peaceful intentions. Sum Nui is said to have published his findings in 1962 in a professional journal and was subsequently ridiculed and met with disbelief. Shortly afterwards, he's said to have gone to Japan in a self-imposed exile, where he died not long after he completed the manuscript of his work. I don't have any further information. So these are things I'm trying to get more information on. There's actually here a couple of things that Dave will share with you now. Dave, tell him about the Russian examination.
Yeah, so the Russian researchers requested the discs for studying, and allegedly several were shipped to Moscow. Once there, it is said that they were scraped for loose particles and put through a chemical analysis which revealed that they contained large amounts of cobalt and other metallic substances, as recorded in the Soviet magazine Sputnik. Oh, can you do that one?
Dr. Vyacheslav Zaitsev.
I'm terrible at this. Describes an experiment where the disc was supposedly placed on a special turntable whereby they were shown to vibrate or hum in an unusual rhythm as though an electric charge was passing through them. Ernest Maguro, Wergeno, was an Austrian engineer who in 1974 visited the Banpu Museum in Jiangxi province, where he saw 2 of the Dropa stones. Sorry, I took this one. It is said that when he inquired about the discs to the manager could tell him nothing, but permitted him to take one in his hand and photograph them. He claims that in his photographs the hieroglyphs cannot be seen, as they have been hidden by the flash from the camera and have also deteriorated. By 1994, the discs and the manager had disappeared from the museum.
Publications. A reference to the Dropa and Dropa stones is found in the July 1962 edition of the German magazine Das Vegetarische Universum, which means the vegetarian universe. Interesting. In 1980, they are mentioned in the book Sun Gods in Exile, edited by David Agamon. Real name is David A. Gammon. This book is written as a documentary of a 1947 expedition with the scientist Dr. Carol Robin Evans. It follows his supposed travels into the secluded region of the Bayan Kara Ula mountain range, where he finds dwarfish-like people called the Dropa. According to his book, the Dropa population consisted of a few hundred members, all of which were approximately 4 feet tall. Robin Evans allegedly lived among the Dropa for half a year, and at that time learned their language and history, as well as impregnating one of the Dropa women. He was told that they had crashed there long ago, and that their ancestors had come from a planet in the Sirius constellation. Gammon later revealed in the British publication Fortean Times that his book was a hoax, and Dr. Carol Robin Evans was entirely fictitious, as was his expedition. In Japan, they are mentioned in 1996 when a translated version of Hartwig Hausdorff and Peter Krasser's Satelliten der Götter, Satellites of the Gods, is released.
Controversies. It has been claimed that Sum Nui is not a real Chinese name. There is no mention of him in China outside of his connections to the Dropa stones. According to Dropa enthusiast Hartwig Hausdorff, Sum Nui is a former Japanese name, but adopted to the Chinese language. Nor is there any mention in any records about Chi Pu Tei's expedition in 1938. Sun Gods in Exile, with its account of Dr. Carl Robin Evans in all appearances, gave credibility to Droper stones until 1988, when David A. Gummon told 40 Times magazine, as you just heard my esteemed colleague mention, that the book was fiction and that Carl Robin Evans was imaginary. The stone disc was supposedly stored in various museums across China. However, none of these museums have ever had any records or traces of Droper stone ever being there. According to the Gould-Parkinson system of transliteration, Dropka is Tibetan for solitude or inhabitant of pasture lands. It is said to be the name of the tribe of Tibetan nomadic herders on the eastern Tibetan plateau, with Wergura's photos lacking concrete evidence of the hieroglyphs. They display similarity to Bai discs. Bai discs are round jade discs with holes in the centres. When buried in the earth, the minerals change them to be multicoloured. Bai discs have been dated from about 3000 BCE and were common in the Shanxi province. Some Bai discs are decorated with parallel grooves and other markings. They came from the distant place in our galaxy. Their spaceship crashed on Earth. They were chased and killed by humans. Stranded on an alien planet, they desperately tried to return home. They knew their existence was doomed, and therefore they wrote down their story for others to read. They wanted to tell us who they were and what they brought and what brought them here. They left a message for future generations, but the alien artifacts left behind were hidden from the public. This story is known under a lot of names, and it is one of the most covered up stories in the history of extraterrestrial human interaction.
If it is true. That's right. I like the mystery of it. And look, what do we think? Honestly, I have no idea. I really don't know.
I would like it to be true.
Yeah.
I think it's compelling. And it would be certainly something, Mecky, that you and I would do if we were on a mission somewhere and we crash landed with no hope of getting home. We'd certainly document it.
100%. Mm-hmm. And look, again, it's certainly something that is worthwhile having a look at. I was in Xi'an. I didn't make it to that particular museum. I intend to go back there one day. Not current troubles notwithstanding. But see, the one thing that I need to say here as well, most of the Chinese people, be they expats or living in China, they are not the Chinese Communist Party.
No.
Right? They are just regular folk. I've got a lady working
all across the planet.
People are people, man. People are people. A lady working on my team. Her parents are still in China. She lives in Australia. She travels back and forth a lot, and it's just a thing, right? I mean, the problem here is power grabbing and power politics, right? People in power trying to stay in power.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that not everybody in America would identify with Donald Trump. Right, you can't say, oh, Donald Trump is representative of every single American. I think that's nonsense.
Or his actions are what everyone would do. Exactly.
Correct. So we need to step away from the vilification of certain peoples. Right. I don't want, because I've been to America many times. A lot of my good friends are American. Mm-hmm. I've got good friends that happen to be of Chinese origin. I have good friends of every color, likewise, creed, and race mm-hmm. that you can imagine. And so does Dave. And it's really the person that counts, not necessarily where they came from, who they are, and I mean, from a racial perspective. And that's the world I want to go and live in. And before I go on to the mystery of the penguin cave, I need to say one more thing around this. This is important because we are talking about this. And it is that policy and this culture of division which keeps us from exploring the real mysteries. When I came to Australia 30 years ago, I had never seen a black person in my life. I'd never really seen an Asian person in my life. The most exotic people that I'd come across was myself, being half Turkish, and a whole bunch of Greeks and Italians, etc. Right? So nothing horrendously exotic. So I came to Australia, and all of a sudden, holy moly, it's all these Asians, all these, people with dark skin, Indians, Africans, Filipino people, and I go, wow, my mind was blown, right? The funny thing is this, though, and I need to share this with you, and I've shared it before I will share it again very quickly. When I came to Australia and I met these people, initially there was a Chinese person or an Indian person or an African person, right? And that's what you first saw. But then over time, as I went to school with these people and we became friends, that person then became Phil or Baz or Ali or whatever. And the primary identifier that had been in my mind sort of disappeared. It sort of dissolved. And if somebody had asked me, where did they come from? I would have had to think for a second to give them the racial identifier, because in my mind they had become Phil and Ian and Baz and Ali and Lester and all those people. Do you know what I mean? That's in my mind. The racial identifier was almost completely washed away after 1 or 2 years of being friends with people. And while it is the first thing that you notice, right, it is also the first thing that goes away once you get to know someone on a personal level. It's very interesting.
Agreed.
So that's the kind of world I'd like to live in. But there are more mysteries. Let's share more mysteries, and let's step away from all this philosophizing.
I just wanted to add something to that, Mecky.
Yeah.
In all of the things you just said, and the way that your differences melt away when you understand the person, was best. I know it's going to be so silly for me to say this, but Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra.
When the
walls fell. That's right. So it says everything, doesn't it? I think Gene was right on the ball. Gene Roddenberry, by the way. Star Trek.
Oh, look, absolutely. Yeah, look, if you guys know what we're talking about, great. It would be too long to explain. But you're right. That's 100% correct. I completely agree. And language, to be honest with you, is the greatest unifier that we have. Right? It's the greatest divider and the greatest unifier.
Look, from this point forward, in any future show, if I'm referring to, just so I'm clear with everybody, if I'm referring to the CCP, I will mention the CCP. I never mention Chinese. I say China, but when I'm referring to China as in a news article, I'll be careful to explain whether it's CCP or the place of China. Never the people.
Yeah, and it's the same with the Germans. Every German and Nazi.
Yeah,
did I experience racism?
That's the case.
Yeah, I did.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So people are people, and a lot of people are just not very nice. But if you give them half a chance, who knows? Anyway, the mystery of the Pangxian cave. How could gigantic animals reach a mountain cave located over 1,600 meters above sea level? Well, I mean there are certain reasons. But did early Homo sapiens? Yeah, that's right. Did early Homo sapiens exist in China at the same time when Homo erectus, Peking man, occupied Zhoukoudian site, or the Zhoukoudian site located near Beijing? So we have talked about this a lot. We are firmly of the opinion that we cohabited the planet with a lot of our supposed ancestors. In fact, they're not our ancestors; they're our cousins, because we interbred. We didn't come from Neanderthal men. We were cohabiting with Neanderthal man and woman, for that matter. Yeah? Same with Denisovan man, etc. The Pangxian Daedong is a Paleolithic karst cavern located in a small valley 1,630 meters above sea level. It's about a mile above sea level on the western Guizhou Plateau in southern China. Humans were present at the Pangxian Daedong cave about 300,000 years ago. 300,000 years ago. That's at the very edge of our existence. Okay, and so were gigantic animals. I mean, we know that the megafauna was still in existence at the time, but scientists are baffled over how these animals could reach a mountain cave located over 1,600 meters above sea level. Or maybe they were hunting. Maybe they were prey of the humans there. Tell us about magical mirrors, and we spent some time on it, but this is much more detailed here.
Mystery of ancient magical mirrors, some of the strangest objects in the world. The so-called, and I don't believe it should be called so-called, ancient Chinese magical mirrors are some of the strangest objects in the world. The exact origins of the ancient Chinese magical mirrors are unknown. Today, we wonder what secrets lie behind the thousand years old magical mirrors that have the creepy ability to project patterns from the back when light is shining on the front. And I've seen what these do, Mickey. When light reflects, say you had the sun reflecting onto the front and you see it, the reflection of the sun's from the mirror on a wall, it actually contains a pattern. You can have pictures and all sorts of things in there. I've seen one that does a cross in person. And you can't tell by looking at it. Looking at the actual mirror surface, you can't tell what image it's going to reflect as. The Chinese magic mirror is an ancient art that could be tracked back to the Chinese Han Dynasty, 206 BC to 24 AD. The mirrors were made out of solid bronze. The front is a shiny, polished surface that could be used as a mirror, while the back has a design cast in the bronze. One of the type of rare mirror called To Quan Ching, which means literally, if I said it correctly, light transmitting mirror. When bright sunlight or other bright light reflects onto the mirror's surface, the mirror seems to become transparent. If that light is reflected from the mirror towards a wall, the pattern on the back of the mirror is projected also onto the wall. In about 800 AD, during the Tang Dynasty, which was 618 to 907, a book entitled Record of Ancient Mirrors described the method of crafting solid bronze mirrors with decorations, written characters, or patterns on the reverse side that could be cast in a reflection on a nearby surface as light struck the front polished side of the mirror. Due to this seemingly transparent effect, they were called light penetration mirrors by the Chinese. The Tang era book was lost over the centuries, but magic mirrors were described in the Dream Pool essays by Shen Cao, 1031 to 1095, who owned 3 of them as a family heirloom. Perplexed as to how solid metal could be transparent, Shen guessed that some sort of quenching technique was used to produce tiny wrinkles on the face of the mirror too small to be observed by the eye. The first magical mirror that appeared in Europe was property of the director of the Paris Observatory. Upon his return from China, he brought with him several mirrors, one of which was magical. This last one was presented as an irresistible mystery to the French Academy of Sciences in 1844. Nobody had seen anything similar, and despite their attempts to register its behaviour, they could never fully understand it. In total, there are only 4 reported magical mirrors to be brought from China to Europe, but in 1878, 2 engineering professors presented the Royal Society of London with various models they had brought from Japan. The English called them diaphanous mirrors, and for the first time they made technical observations regarding their construction. Their effects were so wonderful that they hypnotized the Royal Society, which is to say a lot. Nobody, however, could ascertain what produced the ghostly and beautiful projection of light. While the metal on the front face is completely solid, the image reflected gives the impression that it should be transparent in some way. For many centuries, the magic of these mirrors left scientists and collectors perplexed, who catalogued the phenomenon as an impossible optical illusion and therefore magical. Although his explanation of different cooling rates was incorrect, he was right to suggest the surface contained minute variations which the naked eye could not detect. These mirrors also had no transparent quality at all, as discovered by William Bragg in 1932 after an entire century of confounding Western scientists. You can take the next half, Mickey.
Okie dokie. Robert Temple describes the construction. The basic mirror shape with the design on the back was cast flat, and the convexity of the surface produced afterwards by elaborate scraping and scratching. The surface was then polished to become shiny. The stresses set up by these processes caused the thinner parts of the surface to bulge outwards and become more convex than the thicker portions. Finally, a mercury amalgam was laid over the surface. This created further stresses and preferential buckling. The result was that imperfections of the mirror surface matched the pattern on the back, although they were too minute to be seen by the eye. But when the mirror reflected a bright sunlight against the wall, with the resultant magnification of the whole image, the effect was to reproduce the pattern as if they were passing through the solid bronze by way of light beams. However, in 1932, scientist Sir William Bragg finally discovered why the reflection of the magic mirror shows the design of its opposite side, and he deduced that in its first appearance, the effect was a product of the accidents of the Blacksmith trade, which consisted of rivets and hammer blows, among other things. As for the effect, he explained the following. Although the surface of the mirrors is polished and seems completely flat, it has subtle convex and concave curves caused by the design. Convex curves outwards scatter light and darken their areas of reflection. For their part, concave curves focus light and illuminate their areas of reflection. Mirrors are made of forged bronze, and the thickest parts are cooled at a different speed than the thin ones. Since the metal contracts a little as it is cooled, the different ranges of cooling stress or slightly deform the metal. The thin areas are also more flexible than the thick parts, so the polishing process, which should smoothen the metal until uniformity is achieved, exaggerates the slight differences in thickness. While we cannot see the pattern on the surface of the mirror, photos very clearly delineate it. So when they are able to bounce off the mirror's curves, the pattern emerges. Now, this is the end of the quote. It is important to note, however, that while this method explains the creation of a Chinese or Han magic mirror, it is not the same method that applies to making a Japanese magic mirror, as the optical properties of the images produced by the two types of mirror were not made by the same process. Moreover, unlike the rare Chinese models, there are many Japanese magic mirrors around the world, probably because in ancient Japan, mirrors were considered precious items that were carefully taken care of. Today, it is rumored that Yamamoto Akihisa is the last manufacturer of magic mirrors in Japan. When the Kyoto Journal interviewed him, the artisan explained part of his technique in making these mirrors, which he revealed that he had learned from his father, who had also learned from his father, and so on over several generations. Now, again, this goes back to a long time into the dim and distant past, in my opinion. And you have to ask yourself, why? What's the point, right? And was it done by accident? Did they find this process by accident, or was it the actual outcome of careful study because they wanted to do certain things with it? I don't know.
The knowledge just passed.
But in my mind, bingo. In my mind, it's just another ancient form of tech that has survived to this day. I think we'll maybe make the next. Do you think we'll make the next one?
I think we'll get. Yeah.
I think we will.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so cover up of ET artifacts around Mount Baigong. These remains are known as ET relics, and no one knows their origin. Did extraterrestrials once touch the ground of Mount Baigong? Or, you can have to pronounce that one.
Bayunwashan.
Yes, he does it so easy. Located about 40 kilometers southwest of Delingar city, and left mysterious relics of unknown origin. The area around the city is very isolated, but extremely interesting. Ancient pipes that could be of extraterrestrial origin were discovered on and around the same mountain, located not far from the city. In 2003, a group of 9 Chinese scientists traveled to Qinghai province to closely examine the site. Isn't it strange that the result of the close examination of these artifacts has never been officially published? Has any major research been done in the first place, or has it been interrupted because the relics are in fact related to extraterrestrial visitations to the planet Earth? Is something intentionally being kept from the public and not being published? Yes.
Unanswered questions related to the mysterious Huashan caves. A most mysterious discovery was made at the slopes of those caves. The inclined plane of the walls has exactly the same slope as the outside hill. Is it just a coincidence, or do certain laws of nature lie behind this phenomenon? Reported by explorers researching the ancient mystical caves at Huashan, near the famous Huangshan mountain in China's Anhui province. A most mysterious discovery. The title was yes. Yet according to technology of the time, how could the ancient people have managed something like that? The history and purpose of the Huashan cave, which was accidentally discovered by a local farmer, are now untraceable due to the lack of any words in books or on cave walls describing their use.
Wow. Mysteries of the Yellow Emperor, the son of heaven from Regulus. The Yellow Emperor was a rather interesting entity. The ancient Chinese records mention amazing, wise, and humane, not human. What's PS would that mean, Mickey? Yeah, I know. Okay, that's cool. Beings, not human beings, humane beings, the sons of heavens. This term became emperor's title much later, who had done so much for the then savage dwellers of the Yangtze River Valley. Before the sons of heaven appeared on earth, familiar celestial phenomena preceding all such appearances. Before Hung Ti was born, there occurred a radiance from the great star Chi in the Dipper constellation Ursa Major. Hung Ti was very different from other ancient heroes. He did not enlighten people, did not demand worship. Hung Ti and his helpers were amazingly rational beings. Numerous sources relate the Hung Ti manufactured and used some miraculous tripods. The tripods were not used for water, nor was there any fire to heat and prepare food in them. The purpose of such tripod was quite different. Who was the Yellow Emperor really?
Indeed. Secret ancient world buried under the vast Taklamakan
I don't
desert.
think we're going to make it. No.
Out of time?
Yeah,
I don't think we will. Now, let's leave it here. Yeah,
tune in next week for that one.
Something to look forward to, the Taklamakan desert and the mysteries that lie therein. I'll also have an update on the Huashan caves. We didn't do it justice here. But again, it is clear that a lot of knowledge, in my opinion, was lost through the cataclysms that we experience on this planet. Why they happened, how they happened, we don't know. And we've got some theories, as you know, but it's critical for us to remember that we don't know everything about our own past. We go back 5,000-6,000 years at best, as far as written records are concerned, right? We can piece it together, but even then, we're not entirely sure how it all hangs together. We've lost a whole bunch of cultures and civilizations in the Pacific, in the Americas, in Africa, even in Asia, and even in Europe. We are on somewhat shaky ground when it comes to the dim and distant past. There's very little we know beyond 10,000 years. We think it started 10,000 years ago, Dave. Yeah. We think it started at the end of the last ice age. I believe that is absolute nonsense.
Way earlier.
And yeah, And I mean, human beings in our present form are meant to have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, right? I believe even that goes further back into the past, and I believe the more we look into this, the more science will bear out and tell us, oh yeah, human beings have been around for a very long time indeed, or at the very least, human being-like beings. I don't think we are the race of Adam, and I think there were races before the races of Adam came to this planet. I think we've been cohabiting this planet and this solar system, if you will, for a long time now. I think the moon is not what it seems. I think there are civilizations inside. I think there are civilizations watching us. I think they have been watching us for a long time. Is that the music? Don't go anywhere. Gerber's coming up.
With his awesome show. Do call in. He loves visitors. Take care, everyone. I'll see you next week for another Shiny Shout Out with Dave and Ricky.